Welcome to week 4, module 1, where we continue our conversation about leadership behaviors and leadership habits. As you remember, last week we ended our conversation on the first 3 habits that allowed us to move from dependence to independence, and those are personal victory habits, habits of things we had to work on within ourselves. Now we can start beginning to talk about public victories, the sort of habits we build that create relationships and effective working partnerships with the other people within our school, our other stakeholders. So this week, we begin our discussion about public victories. And the question really to ask yourself is, why would somebody want to work with you? And when you discover that, you start to look at what are the behaviors associated with that. In order to get ready for this week, we've had several accomplishments this past week. You've thought long and hard about your time management, about having the end in mind, and most importantly then, putting first things first. So the question is, what is the next best thing to do? Do it. Are you? And also, as a function of putting those 3 habits together, of being proactive, of starting with the end in mind, and putting first things first, are you starting to see that these are some of the habits that will allow you to expand your sphere of influence, your ability to lead, and be more effective in partnership with others? Hopefully, as a part of that, you've continued implementing your plan to teach these habits to others as you're learning them. And that is a function of learning these habits and teaching them to others and acting upon them, that you've completed your reflection and commitment blog post 3. And as a part of your coaching and supporting the development of your peers and others, have you completed your collegial coach response 2? Those things will get you ready for this current screencast. So the road to independence is a road that said, habit 1, be proactive. You're the driver, not the passenger. Habit number 2, decide where you want to go and draw a map to get there. Begin with the end in mind. And habit number 3 on the road from dependence to independence was get there. Don't let roadblocks take you off course. In other words, put first things first. We talked about those habits from dependence to independence being a habit of choice, a habit of vision, and a habit of integrity and execution. They're the habits below the surface. They're the part of the iceberg that talks about your character and what you really are and what you're really made of. Character and the respect and integrity and authenticity and visibility of your character creates the conditions under which other people would rather work with you or without you. So what we've been doing, and is part of a continual responsibility of this course and our leadership throughout our lives, is that we're constantly being asked to relearn these habits, to live them, and to teach them to others. And as we do that, we become more mature as a leader, and as we do that, our sphere of influence becomes broader and more effective. This movement of moving from dependence, external locus of control, to independence, where we're free of influence, where we're our internal master, there's self-control and domination and discipline, we're all private victories, and position ourselves to where others people will look at us and say, look, he or she can get it done. There's integrity and independence and authenticity and character in the way that person functions and the way you function, and therefore you attract the interest of others to want to work with you and for you. So independence is a position where other people say, that's the person I want to work with. That's the person I want to be led by. I have respect for that person, for their follow-through, for their dedication, for their determination, for the dependability. And those are the things that create an authentic leader, the characters that each of us want to develop and demonstrate constantly as we're in new situations or where new challenges come before us, and people can have a chance to view us and say, this person is very dependable, and therefore is a person I want to be associated with. That's how we build our teams. That's how your leadership role and sphere of influence expands. As you can see from our Covey diagram, moving from independence to interdependence, where you're truly working effectively with others, requires our next 3 habits. These next 3 habits are about relationships. Covey talks about relationships similar to the image of a bank account. A financial bank account, you put money in, deposits, and you take money out, withdrawals. In, out, in, and out. And the question you always ask yourself is, or we're responsible for, is have you put more money in than you're taking out? If you put more money in than you're taking out, then you have a positive bank account. If you take more money out than you put in, you are bankrupt, financially bankrupt. You lose your credit. You lose the bank does not have the confidence in you to manage your accounts well, and therefore they close or significantly control your account. Same thing's true with relationships. We invest in them and we receive benefit from them. We invest in them, deposit, we receive benefit from them when we need other people as withdrawals. And just like our financial relationships, in our personal relationships or interpersonal relationships, if we invest in those relationships, there's a good chance that when we need other people, those relationships are strong. People have your back. People are there to support your new initiatives, your new ideas, your new efforts. You work together effectively. But if you're constantly taking more out of a relationship than putting into it, if you're not dependable, if you're not reliable, if people have to keep cleaning up your messes, if people have to keep doing the work that you were expected to do, you withdraw more than you put in, then you're putting yourself in a position that people don't freely and with enthusiasm develop a collaborative relationship with you. People who take more out of relationships than put into them are not ones that will be effective leaders for long. They show that on the surface, above the iceberg, that they're not people that are trustworthy. What they say and what they do, the results they get aren't aligned. So the next 3 habits, as we build our interpersonal relationships and move from independence to interdependence, are habits that involve being pleasant, being nice, doing things just because they're good things to do, keeping promises, being loyal, listening effectively to people, showing humility, identifying what you want to accomplish with clear expectations, and being overly cautious that you're always depositing more into relationships, you're always giving more, you're always investing more than you're expecting in return. Part of this notion of moving from independence to interdependence is re-examining how we work with other people and the nature of our competition with them. When you have to be right, when you have to win, and your whole notion and definition of winning and losing. If you look at your relationships with others as competitive, then your relationships will be full of competition, will be full of winners and losers, and will be full of the drama that oftentimes affects the type of collaboration we really need to make our schools effective. Look at other large institutions where you tend to lose respect or confidence in their ability to get anything done, perhaps the Congress. And look at the fact that winning and losing, being on the right side and having my side win, seems to sometimes overcome and take more precedent than the issues at hand. That can't be the way schools effectively operate. And if that's the way you develop your sphere of influence out of the power and control of winning versus losing, then it's likely that your leadership will be very limited. Our leadership will be very limited. So let's talk about the first 3 habits, and let's introduce habit 4. Habit number 1, be proactive. Come on, do it with me. Come on, everybody. Ready? You too. Be proactive. Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. Habit number 3, put first things first. And then moving from independent to interdependent, habit number 4, think win-win. Once more, think win-win. Habit number 4, think win-win, is a way of re-examining the notion of how you work with not only people that you get along with and agree with, but your adversaries, people, stakeholders who have different opinions about what to do next or how to get things done, or our goals. So this is the habit of reassessing your mindset, how you look at the stakeholders you work with, those that you collaborate with and cooperate with and see eye to eye on, as well as those that you have a diverse opinion from. How do you start looking at mutual benefits, that people can look at a situation and what can everybody get out of the situation to be effective? How do you work with your friends, colleagues, and adversaries in such a way that we can be making deposits into each other's emotional, relational bank accounts rather than withdrawing? If you continue to withdraw from somebody's bank account as an emotional bank account as you work with them, at some point in time, it's fight or flight. So winning, let's re-examine the notion of winning. And that's what this habit is all about. Most people think of winning as win-lose, like a sports event. Who has more points wins, and who has less points loses. There's a winner and a loser. The winner gets the reward, and the losers get the spoil. And while this is fine in sports, and there's many events where competition should set precedent, in terms of the operation of school, the more we create situations where there's winners and losers, people who have to eat crow, people who have to feel that they've lost, that they don't get their mutual needs met by interacting with you, you end up with situations where you breed disloyalty, you breed drama, you create situations where it's uncomfortable being in each other's presence, and losers will always figure out situations or try to put them in situations where they'll win next time, and guess who will lose? You. The next situation is the lose-lose. We get in such tug-of-wars with people that if I'm going to lose this argument, you're going to lose too. That nobody wins. That nobody gets to play ball. If you don't play by my rules, I'm taking my ball home, and neither of us play ball. Lose-lose. Creates a downward spiral. The more we have lose-loses, the more likely we start believing we're in an environment where we can't be effective. Collective efficacy goes out the window. Instead, we start to feel that this is an environment that is dysfunctional, that neither one of us can thrive. And if stakeholders who share the same environment don't feel they can thrive together, and their relationships are dysfunctional, we start to lose sight of beginning with the end in mind. The next situation is there are people who are such pleasers, and sometimes we want to be in such a position of pleasing others that we decide to lose so our adversaries can win, under the assumption that that will make them like us or get points for the next time there's a battle. But really, when we purposely lose so other people can win in issues that really matter, we're really just setting ourselves up as a doormat, as a weak leader, as a leader who's willing to give up vision and purpose and commitment and doing the next best things in order to help and please somebody else. So finally, the question is, what's it take to both win? What's it take to say that there's a third alternative, as Covey talked about? Not your way, not my way, but a better way. In Buddhism, they call that the middle way. It's not the point between my point and your point, the compromise, but a better solution. Compromise is all about, I want $100 for the car, you're selling the car for $200, I say $125, you say $175. We both know this is going to end up at $150. We both have to give up in order to solve the solution. It's called 1 + 1 = 1.5. Win-win is more about 1 + 1 = 3, where our solution together meets both of our needs. By listening to each other's needs and our goals, maybe we come up with a better way that we can all live by than if we had worked on it alone. Win-win and finding a third way is the alternative to competing and comparing. What's your definition of win-win? How do you deal with the people you get along with at work, at school? How do you get along with the people you don't? How do you work with the people you don't get along with? Can you change your mindset and figure out different ways of having conversations with those people so you find common ground, even though you have desperate ideas in terms of what to do or when to do next and the approach? You all got into teaching for the same reason. How do you find that common ground and work on a solution from there so you both can win? Win-win is a matter, it's not you or me, it's both of us. It's not a matter of who gets the biggest piece of the pie. If we work effectively together, if we keep our end in mind, if we do the next best things to get to that end, perhaps we can think of better things to do next by working together than by working independently. So see, I get better results by cooperating rather than competing with the other major stakeholders in the school. 2, I persist in looking for win-win relationships. I'm not trying to deflate you. I'm not trying to dominate you. I'm not trying to beat you. I'm trying to work with you to find a better solution. And what we get is a solution with mutually beneficial results. That's what win-win is about. That's what you have to think about for this following week. That's the next step in becoming an interdependent person. Be proactive, start with the end in mind, put first things first, and think win-win. So for next week, week 5, think long and hard about winning, being a cooperative rather than a competitive endeavor. Implement your teaching plan to others. Reflect and complete your reflection and commitment blog post 4, Think Win-Win. And as a critical coach, post your response to your partner's blog post 3. And I have a little fable for you. These 2 donkeys each wanted to eat hay. But as you can see from the first picture, they were at a tug of war and neither of them was going to win. The longer they stood there, it was going to be a lose-lose. They had this bright idea. They decided that if they worked together, they could go eat all the hay on one side and then walk over to the other side and eat the hay there. They figured out a way to win-win. So face it, if these asses can figure out how to win-win, so can you. See you next week.